Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about classical conditioning and why it matters for you and your dog. Classical conditioning is just something that's going on all the time because things are happening around us and our dogs are always learning from those things. When scientists were first researching classical conditioning, they actually used dogs in their experiments, and one of the main ones that is very well known for classical conditioning, and you might have heard of it before, is Pavlov's dinner bell. So all he would do was ring a dinner bell and then feed the dogs in the experiment. And after enough repetition, he realized that even without giving the food, he would ring the dinner bell and the dogs would start drooling because they were ready to get that food. Their body had just learned that bell means food. And that's pretty much the basics of classical conditioning. Something happens, that means something else very specific follows. Everyone kind of works that way, but we use that a lot in our dog training. And something that's pretty interesting to keep in mind is that Pavlov also found out that if you ring the dinner bell at the same time when you give the food, it doesn't work. And if you ring the bell after the food's given, it also doesn't work. So that is one of the key things about classical conditioning, is something happens first and then the result. So at the same time or after does not work the same way. An example of what has been classically conditioned in my dog is the word yes, because we use it in training. So my dog's just had a ton of repetition of yes means food rewards coming. So now, even if she doesn't see my food pouch or that there's food around, if I tell her yes in the specific tone of voice that I say it into her, she will start drooling. It might take a couple seconds, but she'll start drooling because she's ready for food. And she gets kind of excited because she's anticipating the food. So classical conditioning can be done on purpose, like the example I just gave with my dog, but it can also happen on accident. Like you grab your keys and your dog knows that you're going outside. That's an example of the keys have been classically conditioned to mean going outside. Another fun example of something that's been accidentally classically conditioned in my house, because I'd rather it not be this way, but there's just no avoiding it. The closet where I keep the food for my cats and my dog creaks when you open it. So every time I go to open that closet, they hear that creak go. Everyone gets up from their beds and they come over to see if I'm giving them food. It's just so ingrained as a habit that this sound happens and we come over for food, that their body just automatically does it before their brain even has a moment to catch up to the moment, before their brain has a chance to catch up to what they're doing.
I don't want you to feel like you have to monitor and overthink everything that happens in your dog's day now, now that you know about classical conditioning. But just keep in mind that classical conditioning can happen at any time. Anything that involves one action or sound or something happening followed by another action or consequence or reward, or anything that is one thing happens then something else follows and it's always the same pattern, is going to become a stronger habit and stronger pattern the more our dogs practice it, until eventually it becomes classically conditioned. And having to undo classical conditioning means you basically have to recondition a new response, which is harder to do once there's already a classically conditioned response. So it's best to be mindful of what could be a classically conditioned response or what is headed that way, because your dog barks when people come at the door, or that anytime you grab your keys, your dog expects a walk. Those are things that we need to just be mindful of. And if there are things that might be becoming classically conditioned that we don't want to be, we need to start taking action into either taking preventative steps so that it doesn't happen in the first place, or proactively training to teach a different response.